Hello, Medfield, and welcome to the newest edition of Medfield People. As you probably know, I've been looking for people with different occupations and different vocations and trying to find out why the heck they became what they are today. And my guinea pig today is my old friend, Bob Sylvia. If you look at him, you'll know he's a lawyer, an attorney, whatever you want to call him, and has been one for a long time. So he's going to tell us why he is an attorney, how he got there, and how well he enjoys or disenjoys the job he decided to do years ago. So Bob Sylvia.
Well, thank you very much, Ann. It's a long story, so I'll try and condense it a little.
Okay.
Because it involves 4 years of speculation when I was in college at UNH. But when I was a young lad in Middleborough growing up, my cousin was an engineer. And I admired his work, and he had graduated from UNH. So I said, well, when I go there, I'm going to probably be studying engineering. Then I got up there and saw that I didn't like any of the courses, so I never, ever went any farther with that. And I really never did much thinking about what I was going to do when I got out of college, because I knew that I was going to be in the Army. Mm-hmm. So I joined the ROTC since I thought it was the best thing I could do, given the fact that I wanted to be an officer if I was going to be in the Army, and everybody had to go in those years. So I wound up at Fort Lewis, Washington as an officer. But on the way there, a lot of things happened that convinced me to be a lawyer.
Okay.
First and foremost, the head of the history department at UNH, Dr. Phil Marston, had been my father's guidance man, I guess you'd say, or advisor. And my father had told me that he was a good guy and he was still at UNH. And he was. He was the head of the history department. And he became my advisor, I guess because my father probably called him and told him to watch out for me. I'm not sure.
Because he misbehaves.
In any event, I wound up the first 2 years I was there. I really had no idea what I wanted to do for a living. I knew I was going into the Army because I was a part of the ROTC program, and I knew that would take 2 years after I got out of school, so I didn't think about it. And I went through my freshman year and my sophomore year, had a very nice time there. And then I happened to be leaving a class in Merkland Hall, and Dr. Marston tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Bob, I need to talk to you." And I said, "All right, Dr. Marston, I'd be pleased to. When do you want to see me?" He said, "Right now." So we walked down to his office, and he said, "Take a seat." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I have looked at the courses you have taken over the first 2 years here, and I want to tell you that I think you have absolutely wasted 2 years in this university taking these courses." I said, "Yeah, Dr. Marston, but these were interesting, and I liked them, and I enjoyed them." And he said, "I don't care." He said, "They're not what you need to do. You ought to plan for your long-term future." And I said, "Okay, do you have any suggestions?" He said, "Yes, I think you should be a lawyer."
That quick.
And I said, "Wow." And I said, "I don't have any lawyers in my family. How do I know?" And he said, "Well, look," he said, "you don't need to have them in your family. What you need to do is change the curriculum that you probably have in mind for the last 2 years here into some other courses, and I'll write you a list of them," which he did. Many of them were tough and difficult, but I said, well, you know, he knows what he's talking about, so I'll at least think about being a lawyer. Then it was the end of my sophomore year at that point, so I went to my summer job as I usually did and didn't spend any more time thinking about it. Then I got to be a junior the next year, and very shortly after I got there, the second person who convinced me about what I should be doing, Father Bob Drinan, who was a Jesuit priest and was the dean of the Boston College Law School, came to UNH to deliver a speech at the Newman Club. And I went, And essentially, Father Drinan was a very, very good public speaker and very persuasive. And he basically was trying to sell a legal career to many of us. And he did a great job with me, because I came away from it saying, gee, this guy, I've already had Dr. Marston, a man I like and who I respect, telling me I should be a lawyer. And now I've got this guy,
Yep.
who's the dean of a law school, telling me that's what I should do. So I said, I now think maybe that's what I should do. I took the courses in the next 2 years that Dr. Marston said I should take, did all right in them, wound up graduating in 1959. When I graduated, I had to face up to the task of, if I was going to go to law school, I had to face up to the task of doing something about my military obligation. I went and talked to the ROTC people and told them that I wanted to go to law school. And they said, well, tell you what, you can probably get a deferment if you want, but you'll have to commit to 3 years in the service instead of 2, but we'll put you in the Judge Advocate General's Corps, and we'll see what we can do about a deferment. So between them and a friend of my father's, Hastings Keith, who was the congressman from southeastern Massachusetts, I succeeded in getting the deferment. So now I could go to law school. I applied to 3, I think, BU, Michigan, and Boston College. Not surprisingly, I got into Boston College and actually into the other 2 also, but having been so persuaded by Father Drinan, I decided I better go to BC because he was the boss, and I thought it would be a well-run school and I would do better there. So I spent 3 years at Boston College Law School, thoroughly enjoyed them, learned a lot. Then came the fact that I had to go into the Army, which I did very shortly after the end of my senior year in college. After graduation, I had gone right to law school, but then after graduation from law school, I went right into the Army. And much to my surprise, learned that the Army required military lawyers to know something about the Army. So they immediately sent you to a combat arms training campaign for a while. And I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, learned to be a small armor unit leader, running tanks. But I spent 8 weeks there, and it was kind of interesting, but I don't know that it helped me much, but I at least got out of there. Then I went to the JAG school, which was at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, where they send all Army lawyers to be trained. It was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it there. Did pretty well. And the next thing I knew, I was in Fort Lewis, Washington as a lawyer. It was, I think, much akin to what doctors and the like do. It was like an internship. I learned how to try cases. I think I tried something like 7 homicide cases as a prosecutor when I was at Fort Lewis, and Lord knows how many other serious criminal matters. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and it enabled me when I got out of the Army to be able to tell people who were looking to hire lawyers that I actually had some experience in courtrooms.
Yeah.
And I recall, again, Father Drinan entered my life rather quickly, because I went to BC Law School trying to see who I should talk to about a job, and I ran into him in the hall. And he said, what are you doing here, Bob? I said, well, I'm out of the Army now, Father, and I need to work. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and we need to make some money. And he said, just come to my office. So I went down there with him. He picked up the phone and called Phil Fine, who ran a Boston law firm, Fine and Ambrone. I said, Phil, I'm sending this kid down to you. He's going to be a great lawyer. He's had some experience, and I think you ought to hire him.
And that's how you got to Fine and Ambrone.
That's exactly right. I went right down there. I talked to Phil for an hour or so, and he said, okay, you got a job, just show up here in a week and we'll get you an office and you'll go to work.
And that was it.
It was, and it was not a mistake. I think it was the best thing I could have ever done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, if my cardiologist hadn't told me that I should stop doing it because it was dangerous, because it's very stressful being a trial lawyer. You have these trials last forever. But he just said, look, you've been through enough, you're over 60 now, now's the time to retire and do something else. I said, okay, I'll think about it. He said, you know, you can be a real estate lawyer or something. And I said to him, yeah, and you could be an orthopedic surgeon too, but it's a whole different thing. I mean, if I can't be a trial lawyer, I really can't be a real estate lawyer or a estate planner or anything, because I don't know anything about those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. The work was terrific. I can't say that I ever would have been this happy in another career. And in fact, if my cardiologist hadn't told me to stop, I never would have.
Well,
But sometimes you got to listen to advice.
and you listened to it, that's how you got to law school.
That's right.
Listening to people. So you have no regrets about being a lawyer whatsoever?
None. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a better way to make a living. Perhaps not for everybody, but for me it was certainly true. I had no, I really had no career plan in mind when I went to college. Nobody, 18-year-old kids don't think very far into the future.
I didn't.
I certainly didn't.
I was 17 when I went to college, but my thing I was best in was writing. So I was a journalism major and figured someday I would write for a newspaper, but the first job I actually got was on a newspaper. Just sheer luck, just luck.
Well, you know, a lot of things happen in life that are sheer luck. I mean, having Phil Marston as an advisor, having that opportunity to talk to Father Drinan when I was in college about legal careers, those things don't happen except by chance.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, when I was a kid, we didn't have any lawyers in my family. I didn't know anything about the practice of law. So I had nobody to talk to. But these people, Dr. Marston and Father Drinan, talked to me about the law, and I learned a lot.
And you donated a lot of your time to the town. How many different boards were you in over the years?
Well, let's see.
I was trying to count them.
DBA? Well, yeah, the first thing I did was serve on the Finance Committee.
The Warrant Committee, yep.
Then it became the Warrant Committee, and I served on that. Then I wound up on the Zoning Board for 40 years. And in the interim period, I served on various other town committees about projects and things like that. But I thought, you know, there's an obligation to, it seems to me anyway, to use your education to do something for the common good, and I wanted to help the town to the extent that I could. And so when people asked me would I serve on a board or a committee, I always said yes.
Yeah, unfortunately I did too.
Well, you know, nobody pays you for it, so.
Not yet.
As a practical matter, you're doing it sort of what lawyers call pro bono work, and that's fine, because look, when I was a lawyer, my good friend Bob Bonin was the Chief Justice of the Superior Court in Massachusetts, and he called me one day and said, Bob, I need people who are willing to do criminal defense work for indigent defendants. And I said, you know, Bob, I said, I've got a law practice here, and I've got to keep doing things that people pay money for. And he said, no, you got to do this. I need help. I said, okay. And very shortly after I told him that I would do that, I got this notice that I had been selected to be the defense attorney for a homicide.
Wow.
I then went and I talked, because I tried a lot of cases like that in the Army, so it wasn't anything new. But I went and I talked to the kid in the jail, and it appears that he had stabbed somebody 17 times.
Jeez.
And obviously the guy didn't survive the stabbings. And he said to me, but it was self-defense. And I said to him, I imagine it was, except for the fact that the first 4 or 5 could be excused for that. But when you get to 17 stabbings, it's not self-defense. So I said, we got to try to figure a way out of this. I wanted him to plead to manslaughter. Wouldn't do it.
Oh.
So we said, okay, go to court, we'll go to trial, but you're taking a big risk. Eventually, he was convicted of second-degree murder, not first. And then we managed to get that a deal done with the prosecutor to lower that to manslaughter, and that's what happened. But that case, I remember calling Bob Bonin and telling him, you know, Bob, I said, this thing took a lot of time, and I'm not sure how many of these I can afford to do. And he said, don't worry about it, we won't give you another one for a while. They then followed that up with another one fairly quickly, but I didn't mind.
You can't trust a lawyer, can you?
Well, see, I enjoyed these cases. I liked them. I enjoyed trying criminal cases, but I didn't enjoy the time it took, because when you're a lawyer and you're practicing, you got a lot of clients who are knocking on your door saying they want something done, and if you're tied up in one of these cases, you can't really do much.
Yeah.
So that was too bad, but I thoroughly and completely enjoyed the practice of law. I think it was a wonderful opportunity in a profession that I really enjoyed. So that's why I did it, and thought it was fun.
Well, I appreciate your coming here and telling people about it. I really do. I think that's great, because a lot of people go into jobs and they don't like them. You know, they may be 20, 30, 40 years and they're just marking time and checking the money, but they don't really enjoy what they're doing. You liked what you did, and I think that is terrific.
But of course, I had a lot of experience doing things that I didn't really enjoy. I mean, when I was in high school and college, I wound up driving tonic trucks and running loads of tonic up and down stairs in stores in New Bedford and Provincetown and all over the Cape. And that was a hard job, and I said to myself, boy, this is okay. I don't mind doing it for 3 months, but I don't want to do it for the rest of my life.
I don't blame you.
I mean, you know, I had a lot of those jobs that were a lot of work and not much fun, but it served to enable you to get paid over the course of a summer, so that was good.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Bob, for doing this for us. And anybody out there, if you know anybody that's got an interesting occupation that might be willing to sit and talk to us on Medfield People, you can reach me at annmedfield@verizon.net, and I would love to schedule you. But in the meantime, thank you for watching People in Medfield, and I hope you'll watch for the next edition, which will be coming up in a few weeks. Thanks again, Bob.
Well, it was my pleasure.
That was great.
The preceding was a production of Medfield TV.